Hey folks, I have another NixOS video. This one is going to be rather content free. Probably going to subtract from your knowledge. But I think people should be excited about NixOS, or at least maybe not dismissive about it, not cynical about it. And I can explain to you why I think this is. I've been using NixOS for a little over a month, something like that. I made one video about it just because I was curious about it. Um, and I had no intention of creating a second one, but here I am on number 39. It's just kind of organic happenstance, just got into it. I've converted 5 systems in my place to NixOS. There's one other production system that I have that still runs Ubuntu. It's a Raspberry Pi, and it runs my front door unlock system. And I'll probably convert that too in time. In time, I'll convert that as well, likely. And I think this is mostly because I don't feel like I'm wasting my time when I put time into configuring systems with NixOS. I seemingly don't spend wasting. It's not the right word. Spending. Wasting is not the right word. Spending arbitrary amounts of time to create and maintain a shared configuration for my systems. And I think I wrote down why that is, and please excuse me while I relate this to you. I am not a smart man. The difference between success and failure to me is razor thin. I am impatient. I'm hubristic. I am easily bored. I have it in me to be tenacious, but it needs to be drawn out by reward at the end. And NixOS ticks all these boxes for me in a way that other systems really don't. So I'll give you an example. All my systems have the same set of installed programs now. That seems real simple. They all have, let's say, I don't know, Screen, or they all have Tmux, or they all have Ardor, or they all have the same Emacs configuration. All right. And I know that sounds basic, but that has never happened to me before. I'm just too easily bored to invent such a thing that would make it possible for me to do that. At the same time, if I need to, for one of the systems, I can do something slightly different. I can deviate and do something that only that system does. Maybe it has a piece of hardware connected to it that is the other ones don't. Whatever. And system configuration, instead of being this laundry list of chores to be done, becomes a programming exercise. I'm comfortable with programming exercise. I do not like chores. And part of that is that the integration between Nix the language and Nix the package manager and NixOS the operating system, it means that I'm not required to invent very much. Like I said, I'm not that smart. All right, now, and with systems, I can do everything that I do with Nix, everything that I just described to you. I could have done 15 years ago with systems like Puppet, Ansible. There's a billion of them out there. Something that will let you apply a shared configuration between systems. However, while using those systems, I am required to make choices about how things are done. And those choices really have some stop energy to them. But some of the choices are so low level that they're uninteresting, and it becomes rather boring rather quickly to do Puppet or Ansible. Where is this authorized keys file supposed to go? I don't really care. I just want it to be there, and I want to be able to log in to that system. On top of all that, where I'm sort of motoring along, I'm creating a configuration very quickly that rewards me. at the end of it, I can share that configuration with someone else in a meaningful and even executable way. And the way to execute it is well understood. There's no trickery here. You know, this is also the same with Puppet and Ansible, but somehow no one seems to do it. You don't see people sharing Ansible configurations. This culture of sharing configuration and sharing declarative statements about builds is something that is, I think, at least in quantity and also probably in quality, unique to NixOS. I'll give you an example. I recently heard from a friend who's an excellent Unix system administrator. He somehow saw my videos, and I didn't tell him about NixOS. We never spoke about NixOS before I heard from him again. But he took the configuration that I put up on GitHub, and he forked it, I guess, or maybe just checked it out. I don't know. And he made some changes to it, and he got one system up and going. And he said, "Wow, that was easy." This guy has been doing this for 25 years. 25 years he's been doing this. And I imagine, I can't imagine that he's ever done such a thing before, where he's just walked up to some rando's repository. Of course, I'm not a rando, I'm one of his friends, but that he's just walked up to some repository and had both the inclination, the confidence, and the ability to repeat a build on his own system. And then he did it again to another system. And I think he's in the process of doing to a third system now. He's got a pile of laptops that he, has collected over the years. He actually said to me at some point, he said, "What have you done to me?" I mean, I didn't do it to him. He did it himself. But he's well on his way to I think, switching all of his systems over to it, which is where I was when I made my first video. So another problem with those other configuration management tools, that's the word I was trying to think of. Another problem with those configuration management tools, like Ansible and Puppet, is that, and maybe this feeds into its popularity a little bit. If you stop a NixOS rebuild in the middle of it, there's a vanishingly small period of time where when you press Control-C and stop the build, that anything could possibly get messed up, because the system is a set of symlinks. And the last step of the build process is to adjust all the symlinks. And of course, that's not totally atomic. You can't make that atomic. You can't make changing all the symlinks at one time immune to interruption. But the amount of time that it's doing that for, in my system, I think it creates like 40,000 symlinks or something like that, is minuscule. It's on the order of less than a second. Any other time that I press Control-C during that build, it is completely idempotent. It'll start where it left off, more or less. And on a system like Puppet or Ansible, you try the same thing. It will try to start where it left off, but man, the system in the meantime is hosed. I mean, it is in a half-finished state, whereas the system that you configure with NixOS is in its old state. It's not hosed. If it takes an hour to build a system, and I press it at 59 minutes in, I'm still fine. Or if I press it at 10 minutes in, I'm still fine. Doesn't really matter. If I did that with Puppet or Ansible, I would have to run it very quickly again and then worry that I hurt somebody. I think this set of features that I just described is actually, they actually feed into each other as sort of a virtuous cycle. And like I said, I'm not a smart man. I'm not a patient man. I can be tenacious, but it really takes me feeling like I'm going to get something at the end to be tenacious about it. But because with Nix, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. Uh, I find myself surprisingly getting to the bottom of issues that I could have gotten to the bottom on Ubuntu or Manjaro or Fedora or any whatever else I was using. Um, and I could have fixed them there. But man, the reward to do so was just minimal. First of all, if you're not running a configuration management system, you have to do it manually on every system. That is really boring to have to do. So the answer is to run a configuration management system. But the configuration management tools that are available for these systems are, I don't know, they're just me typing, except automated. There's no declarations. I mean, I sort of, you go into an Ansible thing and you see these directives, and they do things, but they do them in an order. They're definitely in an order, and you have to know the order. You have to control the order. In the NixOS stuff, I'm not concerned about order. I just tell it I want it to look like this at the end, and it does. I mean, there's exceptions to that because, of course, Nix uses Bash under the hood to do a bunch of stuff. So I'm writing Bash. Yeah, sure. I know I have to do that stuff, but I'm not doing it very often. People have anticipated the kinds of things I want to do in Nix, and often I just reuse whatever they did. I guess what I'm saying, it is a game of inches here. I often found myself in a place with my other systems where all of them were configured completely differently. I just didn't bother with the configuration management stuff. I mean, you should probably argue that I should have, because it's not like I didn't. It's not like I haven't used configuration management tools. I use them all the time at work and stuff. But for my own systems, it just seemed like it's like going. It was like going to work. I mean, it really was. It's like, okay, like now I'm back at work, and I have to name these steps. It's dull. It's boring. And I feel like now that I have Nix, I'm getting to the bottoms of these kinds of stupid issues. Like, I don't know, fixing my computer sleep. Even though it's the same, I would have had to do exactly the same thing on Ubuntu or Manjaro or Fedora or any of that stuff. It's the same system, but I actually do it now because I'm like, okay, fine. Like I can write this down once. I know where to put it. And also maybe it's going to help somebody else. So what it all means is that because I was just nudged over the edge of feeling like I'm not wasting my time, and because that makes me tend to get to the bottom of issues, for whatever reason, maybe I'm just goofy. Success more often seems possible than impossible. Before, it just seemed impossible. It seemed like I am never going to get this under control. I'm just going to live with chaos, which is fine. Everybody has chaos. But in this game of inches, Nix just pushed me over the edge just that little bit so that I have things working that I've never had working before. Here's just some concrete examples. Like I can bring up a new system with the vast majority of the configuration I use in 20 minutes. I mean, I'm not lying. This is not 20 minutes would be a long time. Actually, I would have to make a couple mistakes because my configuration is version controlled, and it's a copy paste edit thing. I have to change. As far as I understand it, for a lot of these systems, I would have to change 3 lines. Copy some configuration in one of my other systems, change 3 lines, run a script. I would be done. That system would be then up and running. That has never happened to me before. I can reinstall a system that's already running Nix in exactly that amount of time, plus whatever amount of time it would take me for me to back up my home directory. I mean, literally, it would be indistinguishable from the system that was running. I had to do that recently because I broke Nix. It's not easy to do, but I did it. So I had to go reinstall. And it was easy as pie. Not a problem. Another benefit is that the systems I have here, before, when I was running various distributions, it would always seem that I would like try to SSH to one, and it just doesn't respond. Like it's just either it's sleeping, or it rebooted and it's waiting for password, or I forgot to configure SSH server on it, or whatever. So it was always a crapshoot if I type SSH, some host name, or DNS didn't work the same way for it. MDNS, like, single without extension host names, just system didn't participate in that somehow. It was always a crapshoot when I would type SSH some system name, whether I would actually get in. It was actually rather surprising when I would be able to. Now that I have this configuration, and now all these systems share the same configuration, that hasn't happened to me once yet. It has not. Well, it did happen because because the power went out, system rebooted. But it happens to me 80%, 90% less than it used to. I can print from any system. I know it sounds stupid, but yes, I mean, I don't print often, but when I want to print, I just want to print. I just want to be there and say, yes, print. Thank you. That was never possible in my old configuration. I'd always have to F around with printing. I can shut the lid on any of my laptops that are connected to external monitors, and they won't go to sleep. I know. It seems stupid, but it's true. I figured it out. I put enough time into it to make it so that didn't happen. Some are also docked, and when they're in the dock, they don't go to sleep. I know, right? I can shut the lid on laptops not connected to external monitor, and they do go to sleep. They go to sleep. They don't just sit there. They don't. I didn't shut the screen, and they don't shine the light, their monitor light, on the keyboard for 2 hours running my battery down. I know. It's amazing. It's because I put the time in. I was rewarded when I put the time in. I can carry around like an external ZFS formatted drive, and I can plug it into any of these systems and mount it. It can even be encrypted. Once I log in, I can send and receive key-based messages on any of these systems. 6 of them, 5 of them, sorry. Wherever I am, I'm in front of some messenger that I can talk to people on. I can use my stupid Roland looper on any of these systems. If you put the time in to configure the kernel patch that it requires. I can use an old build of a package built years ago to work around bit rot, dependency bit rot. The current version of a package I used will not build, but I can go back in time. I can transport myself back in time just for that one package. That's amazing to me. But the thing is, technology, it's only going to get you so far, and sort of this virtuous cycle is really insular. You're not always going to be working with your own systems and by yourself and everything. It's always much easier to do that than to work on teams. The thing is, another thing I noticed while I was asking questions in various support channels for NixOS is that it somehow happens to also have a really excellent community. I haven't seen this kind of community in many other places. I've seen it. I saw it way back in the day with Python. And Before then, I think the only time I saw it before that was on bulletin board systems. Um, there is unreal politeness and humility and thoughtfulness and thoroughness on all the support channels I could detect. It. Discourse, the Matrix, IRC, GitHub. Just go look at any issue. Look at the language used by people. Oh, I think it might be this, or, I'm not sure if your configuration is the same as mine, but here's what I found. There's no, RTFM. There's nobody flexing there, which is so common in other venues. I mean, it is the default to see people flexing and being assholes in support. I don't know how they get there. I think it's a power trip thing or something, but there's none of that in the NixOS community. There's no bureaucrats, people who say, hey, you posted this question in the wrong place. I fucking hate that. Fuck you, I posted in the wrong place. That's the worst kind of bureaucracy, this crushing bureaucracy of support. It's dumb. There's none of that. There's no trolls. If there are, I haven't noticed any. There's no influencers. People aren't there for the clout of using NixOS. It doesn't exist yet. And there's no condescending know-it-alls. It is astounding to me. How did it happen? Maybe it's because if you're any of these, maybe it was set up from the beginning such that you might get a warning, say, hey, we don't really do that here, and I think the follow through after the warning is you just get ignored, and you go fuck off. I think that's how that works. I'm not sure. That's my experience in other places as well. But it is really astounding. The community is really astounding. Everybody is smarter than I am. Everyone. I love that. I love working with people that are smarter than I am. They're also recognizably human. They're not automatons. And very few people in the community are really cynical about NixOS. I mean, you could detect a little impatience at the edges and maybe some I mean, just for example, maybe there's some division now, people who like flakes and who don't like flakes, But even that sort of division in the community, people are pretty good-natured about it. They're not like you people are evil. And also people that I respect, I know, and I like already. I've known them for years. They're also, they deeply understand building systems. They're also part of this. They've migrated to this. So I might as well have tried it. I wish I had tried it earlier. So I think NixOS has a bit of because of these things, for me anyway, I think NixOS has a bit of a revolutionary paradigm. I think in many ways, I'm sure people are going to disagree with this because this is a strong statement. All right. And this word means many things to many different people. But I think it is a ground up rethink of Unix, or at least a repurposing of Unix in fundamental ways that we haven't seen so far. We haven't seen a Linux distribution or any distribution of anything that that does what it does so well, I think. And I think given its success, the implication to that is that the current emperor has no clothes. The Linux standard space is just kind of nonsense. It's fine, but it doesn't mean all that much. The current set of package managers, apt, Yum, do you even have Yum anymore? DNR? I don't even know. Pac-Man. Um, they're totally irrelevant. They're copies of each other that do exactly the same thing. None of them is any better than the other. They are exactly the same thing. This is something completely different. Nix. And what's interesting about it is that it manages currently, right now as it is, the NixOS, to bridge the gap between pretending to be this old school Unix thing. It just pretends to be a geeky Linux distro. And it does it really well. It looks exactly like my Ubuntu system when I install it. I can't tell the difference. But in reality, I think it's more like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Because it doesn't work like those systems. It's a one-way street. Once you give it a fair shake, you use it, you will not go back to something else. Now, there might be something in the future you move to. Nix may not be the end-all, be-all system. The idea that you would look at NixOS, use it for a month, and then be like, I don't know. Whatever. I'll go back to Fedora. I don't see that happening with very many people. I mean, my mind would be blown by that happening. I could imagine. So that's all really good stuff. I think there's a bit of subversiveness to the community aspect that is really entertaining and fun as well. But Nix, I was going to have some challenges. It's not going to be like this forever. These are the best days of your life. Community is going to change. Popularity has its costs. It happens all the time. When something gets popular, people are attracted to it, and all kinds of people are attracted to it. Not just the smart, funny, geeky ones. It's the boring control freaks, the bureaucrats, the trolls, the influencers, the know-it-alls. They're on their way. They're coming. You can't stop them. You can't. There's going to be a temptation to impose backwards incompatibilities because, mistakes have been made, that sort of thing. But also there's going to be a countervailing temptation to avoid them arbitrarily because it's going to break people. And so we have this tightrope of, do I abandon some, stuff that's working now, and do I break people in order to make the system more coherent, or do I carry around the legacy? Both are costly. Both are super costly, and the choices that you make in doing that are largely arbitrary. It's just a judgment call. Sometimes it's right to carry around backwards compatibility forever. Sometimes it's right to break it entirely, and it really depends. It really is a judgment call, and that is a challenge. That is a challenge for the people making that decision. It is not easy to do that. There's going to be pressure. The thing that does most of the heavy lifting right now when you rebuild a system is shell. All that stuff's still runs the show, more or less. I think there's going to be pressure to get rid of this ugly, dirty shell stuff and move some of those features into Nix, the language itself. I don't think that's a particularly good idea. I'm sure people disagree, but I think the current way it's factored is about right. It's actually just very practical right now. Documentation, it's a bit of a mess. I mean, it's no worse than any other rapidly growing popular open source thing, but it's no better for sure There are lots of sources, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but having lots of sources means it's almost like you have 7 people talking to you at the same time, telling you what to do. It's like having 7 bosses, kind of. And they all explain it slightly differently, and some of it is out of date, and it's a bit of a minefield, you know. I'm not for example, I'm not that much of a fan of wikis. I think wikis are where ideas go to die. Wikis are where people put solutions to problems they had in 1967. Now it's not quite as bad as that. I've gotten some really useful information from the next wiki, but um, if it's not tended to, if it's not gardened, if there's nobody there that's really paying attention and going through that stuff page by page, you know, every week or something, it turns into misinformation at some point. Active measures. um, so I'm not that much of a fan of a wiki. What I am a fan of is documentation that is put into version control that everybody can edit, or not everybody, but people can supply pull requests to it or whatever. I'm a fan myself of restructured text and Sphinx, which is a Python thing. I've actually written entire books in the system. I've actually printed books out of such a system, so I know that it can be done. Huge amounts of documentation. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of pages, you know, in one place, and it's totally manageable in such a system. I don't know about other systems. Maybe it's doable there. We got some challenges, but I think for right now, I think the folks who are involved in NixOS should have a celebration. This is the best. This may be the best it's going to be. This may be the best it's going to get, and you should congratulate yourselves on doing such a wonderful job so far. And thank you. I am in your debt. All right, thanks.